Hey everyone, HeatherAsh here for our live, which is called Why Resolutions Suck. So I am going to go live on Instagram because I don't think it might be. Let's see. Is it going live on Instagram? So give me a second and I will figure this out. For those of you that are joining from many of the different platforms, we're broadcasting on my public page, my private page, the Warrior Goddess Training Circle, the Warrior Goddess Women, Warrior Goddess Inspiration, and YouTube. Hey, Valerie. Yay. Okay, that's what I thought. And let me just go live on Instagram as well. Hey, beautiful. So for some of you, you're coming through as Facebook user. So whoever just wrote, hi, beautiful soul, share your name. If I say your name, that means I can see your name. Hey, Joan. Sometimes I can't. All right, going live on live. Boop. Awesome. Okay. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Terry. Lilia. Love it. All right. IG. Hi, Deb. Okay, we're also live on Instagram. So I'm doing double duty, Instagram and Facebook, YouTube, all the places. Hey, Laura. Hey, Katita, Laura Stack, Laura Goodman. Hey, Heather from Brooklyn. I'm right up the street from you. So I'm currently in Woodstock, New York, upstate New York. And this is a place I come January. So this is my January home. And I'm working on a book that I started a couple of years ago that I worked on last year, thinking I was going to get it done last year, but surprise, I'm working and finishing it this year. So Nanika, JC, Paula, welcome. Hey, Elizabeth, Trish, I see a couple of folks on Instagram. So welcome everyone. Lisa, this is the beginning introduction to the yearly anti-resolution challenge that I do in January. And it starts tomorrow, January 11th through the 17th. Today, we are talking about why resolutions suck. Hey, Jason. Yay! Hugs to you and Isis. Hey, Anika. Hey, Sweet Pie. Yay! I love this. So, why resolutions suck? We're going to have fun today as we explore this topic. And I'm also open to questions. So, I just want to say thank you, everyone who's joining live and everyone who's listening to the recording later. As some of you know, it's been just an incredible year. Hey, Mo. One of the things that happened last year was we had a wildfire through the land that I steward. The second thing was I got COVID and then I had long COVID. So last year I really pulled back a lot, and I feel like, I'm so excited to be doing lives again, to be interacting more, to be opening up our community and inviting those of you that are new or those of you that have been around to join in as we explore this topic, why resolutions suck and why you're probably using them against yourself rather than using them as a way to support yourself. Hey, Elise, Sunil, hello. Good. So why do resolutions suck? And one of the things that I wrote is why resolutions suck and why you don't. So often when we create a resolution, a New Year resolution, which seems like a good idea, what we're actually doing is saying, I will approve of you if you do this resolution. We're setting a goal for ourselves of a way that we think that we'll be a better human. And often we end up using that goal against ourselves. So resolutions suck because so often they are coming from our judge or from our idea of who we think we're supposed to be. So often we're like, I'm going to lose those 10 pounds, or I'm going to be a better human, or I'm going to be more loving. And we do that from a place of outward who we think people want us to be or who we think we're supposed to be. And it's just destined to fail. Because instead of from a deep connection from our heart, from our love of self, from our joy, from our curiosity of stepping into how do I want to be this year? Instead of using the energy of a new year to really support ourselves and to undo what's not serving us from a loving place, we often try to put this resolution on top of ourselves of, if I just do this, I'll be likable, I'll be a better human, I'll be more productive. It sucks. Don't do that to yourself. Okay, so what is an antidote to resolutions that are made from judgment, from trying to fix ourselves, from a place that we end up struggling? And here's the other thing. Most New Year's resolutions last approximately 18 days, and then we let them go. They're not sustainable often, again, because usually it's our judge that's putting them into place, our desire to be better, to fix ourselves, to be seen in a particular way. And so what we can do instead, and why I love the anti-resolution challenge that starts tomorrow, is to untangle ourselves from the old stories and the ways that we are stuck in old patterns of being, both in our body as safety mechanisms and also in our actions. Okay, so one of the things that we're untangling is looking at, especially over the last 3 years, for many of us, the last 3 years with the pandemic and all that's been happening politically and globally in the world have impacted our bodies, or we've had specific experiences that have impacted our bodies that have caused us to go into a physical pattern of holding. And those 4 are fight, flee, freeze. So those are the 3 that most of us know about, this idea of fight, freeze, or flee. That when we are confronted with something that we don't know what to do, or when there's trauma or hurt in our life, that we can go towards freezing. And freezing is getting stuck, not being able to take action. It's the deer in the headlights feeling of like, okay. And that again is in the body. It's not our mind necessarily, though our thoughts can cause us to freeze. This is more a physiological response to danger. Okay. Whether that danger is a real physical danger or it's a perceived danger. Okay, so freeze. So how many of you have had an experience of your life of where you've frozen, where you haven't been able to think, where you haven't been able to act, where you feel like if I just stop everything and don't take an action, somehow that'll make things better? So go ahead and share in the chat, and I'll say hi to those of you that are just joining. And great. And if you have questions, definitely ask them, and I'll go back through the chat and answer questions as we're going through as well. Surely, me. Okay. So when we freeze, often we can't think. Yeah. Okay. So Biabe, I want my husband to get his ex out of our lives and been married for 18 years. I don't want to lose him, but I don't want to live with her in it anymore. Okay. So that's where you're frozen. Clyde, yes. I have an anxiety attack every few months. Dan, thanks for sharing. Yes. And Elizabeth also writes, yes. So that place of being frozen is not able to take action. And it can be really scary and painful and frustrating when our mind is like, just go ahead and take an action. But our body's like, no, I can't. It's going to be more dangerous if I take action. Okay. So we're going to go through each of these different areas and talk about how to start undoing them. And that is what the anti-resolution challenge is about, is looking at these ways that we can get stuck and how to unwind ourselves with love. And here's why doing this is so much better than just making a resolution. A resolution is like putting icing on top of a problem and having a goal that you're like, if I just fix this goal, then everything will be fine. The anti-resolution challenge and working with both the mental and the emotional and physical manifestations of trauma, fear, old agreements and beliefs that don't serve us. When we untangle those, when we go towards looking and undoing those from a place of compassion for ourselves and love, what happens is that we naturally start to take new actions. It doesn't have to be a struggle. We clear out what doesn't work. We heal our beings from a place, again, of love and compassion, and new actions arise automatically. Love arises, creativity arises, reconnection to our intuition arises. Okay. BB, thank you. I figured I was probably saying it wrong. Yay, I love your name. Hey, Anastasia, welcome. Yeah. Okay. So here's a way to get out of freeze. We're going to go through each of the other 3. There's 4 total. So freeze, everyone do this. Hand on your heart, hand on your belly. Just move your body a little bit. And say to yourself, hi, sweetheart. You are safe. Hi, sweetheart, you are safe right here, right now. And instead of trying to fight against freezing, show up and be with yourself and acknowledge the part of you that feels frozen. And imagine that you're going to bring in sunlight, warmth, compassion to yourself to gently help you unfreeze and take your next little baby step, whatever that is. Good. Okay, that is freeze. The next one we're going to explore and play with. You feel how there's this place of bringing in love and presence with yourself rather than trying to push or force yourself through something. It rarely works. It may work in the short run. It doesn't work so well in the long run. Okay, so freeze. Another one is flee. So flee is something happens and you run or you escape in some way, that whether that's escaping into your head, whether that's physically getting yourself out of a situation. And all of these have biological ways that they can keep us safe, and they can also completely get us stuck. Okay, so flee. So BB is, you're also looking at, okay, I just want to flee. So the urge to flee something that you don't know how to emotionally hold for. And again, I'm not talking about you're in danger and you want to hold yourself back from fleeing. Your body's incredibly wise. And so sometimes actually physically removing yourself from a situation is a thing to do. What I'm talking about is a place that you are in perceived danger and you're fleeing, which isn't really what is in your deepest heart's desire, which isn't what really your being wants to do, but the fear is causing you to do. So how do we honor the places inside of us that want to run away, that feel unsafe, and learn how to deepen and hold our capacity to stay, not from force, but from gentle, like, hi, sweetheart. We can stay. We can breathe an extra breath here and open into what is next, so that it's not a reaction, it's a choice. And that's everything that we're doing in the anti-resolution challenge. And again, the anti-resolution challenge starts tomorrow, 7 days. It's a free everyday drip of videos and a little teaching. And I'll be doing lives as well to deepen us into it. So fleeing can be an excellent way to protect ourselves when we're in physical danger. And it sometimes can be a way that we avoid intimacy, that we avoid our own emotional contact, because we're constantly taking ourselves out and distracting. Thanks, Serena. Rather than sitting with our own discomfort. Resolutions suck because often, again, they give us an outward goal that feels like it is doable, and if we just do it, it'll fix everything else. But it's actually not undoing the old patterns and habits. And so we just go from resolution to resolution and trying to change behavior out here rather than going into the roots to transform the roots. And a part of transforming the roots is understanding and being curious about what do we do? What's our familiar pattern? Is it to freeze? Is it to flee? And then to start to practice staying with our own discomfort to get curious about what's actually there. What's the agreement or the pattern that is keeping us stuck? Okay. So again, learning how to be in our relationship with ourselves when we have a tendency to flee, coming back home of, I know you're uncomfortable. I know you're scared. What's the fear? Sometimes one of the ways that I will undo the old patterns is I'll ask myself, what am I actually afraid of? And stop and listen. Okay. And because sometimes we have ideas of what we're fleeing and what we think we're fleeing. But when you actually drop into your body, you might find something completely different. You might think it's about this one thing, but when you drop in, you find it's about your childhood wound. It's about feeling like you're going to be abandoned and you're going to try and flee first. It's about something else than what's presenting. So that willingness to be in relationship with your discomfort, to slow yourself down and open what's actually the fear. And that comes from, hey, sweetheart, what are you actually afraid of? What's the deepest fear? I'm here, I'm listening. That you're not abandoning yourself by fleeing, that you're actually going towards the fear and listening to what it is. Okay. Another pattern that we can get into is fight. So we've talked about the top three. There's a new fourth one, which when I learned, I was like, oh, that's huge. So freeze, flee, we just talked about, and then fight. So fight is, again, as a biological survival mechanism, sometimes that's what needs to happen, is that there's danger and that you fight. So it may be that you're being, I'm going to go wild animal. You're being attacked by a wild animal, and the thing to do is to fight. Okay. That's what's going to help you to get out of the situation. However, in modern times, sometimes we have that reaction to fight against something that's actually not endangering us at all. We create enemies outside of us and then believe that we have to fight them. Okay. And BB, I will pause and go and answer your questions. So I see them going by. And again, anybody, if you have a question that comes up, go ahead and share, and I'm happy to answer questions. I'm going to go through each of these 4 responses. Freeze, flee. We're talking about fight. And we're going to talk about the 4th one, which is newer. Okay. So the place where we go into, I have to fight, I have to defend myself, can create incredible havoc and harm to our relationships. Because instead of being able to listen to somebody else's experience, we're immediately defending, we're immediately fighting them. So again, we get to learn how to be in relationship with our own discomfort. I want to defend, I want to fight, I want to prove myself, I want to show that I'm right and they're wrong. And where are the places that doesn't allow us to listen to the other person or to ourselves as well? The last one, which is newer, is called fawn. So many of us have heard about these three ways of being when we're in danger: fight, flee, freeze. This fourth one, fawn, is, I believe, because women have started studying trauma response and realized that fawning is something that is another way that we navigate trauma. And what fawning is that when you're in danger, that you go into, I need to placate or please the other person. Okay. I need to placate or please. Like if I just figure out how to ease the situation, then it's going to de-escalate and I'll be safe and we'll be okay. And this is especially true where how women have responded to trauma, and why I think because men have been studying this scientifically, there have been more men in science. We're just now starting to study, and by now I mean the last 50 years, study women's bodies and women's emotions and women's psychology. Okay. And so there's been this what's the right word? Like blaming the victim. Well, you should have just said something. Well, why did you stay in the abuse? Why didn't you get out? And what's now coming out is because fawning, this going into this complete habit, and it's a trauma response of placating, of pleasing, is a physiological response to trauma. Okay, again, not necessarily a mental, it's a way that we keep ourselves safe. And so many of us, guilty of fawning, and it's not even guilty. If we can see, this is a genius way that we've evolved as humans to keep ourselves safe. But when we're using it unconsciously in other relationships, and when it becomes a habit and becomes hardened in our life over time, it doesn't serve us. Yeah. And for those of us who have been saying to people, why don't you just leave? For some people, it's not that easy. If they could, they would have. Mm-hmm. So that we have, again, that place of compassion for ourselves and others, that fawning is a trauma response that takes time to unravel inside of our bodies. Okay. So you can see why when we're navigating places we don't feel safe and we're going into these physiological responses of fawn, fight, freeze, or flee, that to put a resolution on top of that can be hurtful and harmful to our being. But when we slow down and focus on what needs to be healed and really stop abandoning ourselves, that is the key. That's what we are exploring in the Anti-Resolution Challenge, is how not to abandon ourselves, how to understand these responses that we can have in our being, how they affect us. And then also looking at 4 strategies that are also ways that we keep ourselves safe, and then ways to untangle those strategies. So the 4 strategies, and I came up with these strategies from studying, watching, being in relationship with myself and with my students over the years. I started looking at, why is it that we get stuck? Why is it that we might have all the willingness and strength to make change in our life. But what I noticed is that so often we either wouldn't be able to make the change, or that the change, like you make a shift and then you go back to the old pattern. Okay. You make the change, then you go back to the old pattern. And I started asking, why? Why do we go back? Why do we struggle with change? Or why do we not be able to sustain change in our lives? And one of the reasons is because we're running on strategies that are designed at their core to keep us safe. They give us a template for how to respond and react to things. They have their superpowers. Like each of the strategies, when it's used wisely, has strengths. But much of the time, because we're using the strategies unconsciously, they become templates that we just fall into. So we're not actually present with ourselves or with others. We're just running from our strategies. Okay. So I'll share what those strategies are in a moment. I'm going to pause and answer questions and just check in with all of us. So this is the intro and invitation into an anti-resolution challenge that I do every January. And this year's anti-resolution challenge is January 11th through the 17th. It starts tomorrow. And it is 7 days of people working together to untangle these old patterns that I'm talking about, to get more awareness, clarity, to land into curiosity, and to learn how to ally with ourselves rather than abandoning ourselves. So often resolutions are another form of abandonment. Okay, so how to ally with ourselves. Whether you took the anti-resolution challenge last year, and I know many of you are doing it again this year because it was so helpful, or if you're brand new and you have no idea what it is, join. Yeah, it's a fabulous challenge. It's emails every morning. So starting tomorrow, you'll get a little email that has a teaching, about a 10-minute video. And then I'll also be doing lives every day for the next 7 days. And it is all free and super supportive. It's a deep challenge that we made very, very, very bite-sized. So you'll get a new task every day to look at yourself, to explore, to get more curious, and then exercises around what to do next. Okay. Thanks, Serena. So Serena just shared the link for the anti-resolution challenge. If you haven't joined us, it's super easy. Click on that link. You just have to put your email in and boom, you're in. antiresolutionchallenge.com. And you can join us as we go through. And I'll also, again, be doing lives every day at different times. I thought I was going to do them all at the same time, but I'm going to mix it up and do lives at different times. So you can also join in the lives, whether that's on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram. I'll be letting you know when the challenge, when I'll be doing the live. So I'll be giving you a heads up on them. Is the link on the Facebook group? I am on YouTube. Yes, if it's not showing up on YouTube, if the link's not showing up on YouTube, you can come to Facebook. It's on, we're doing it on a lot of different platforms on Facebook. You can just go HeatherAsh Amara, do a search for HeatherAsh Amara on Facebook, and you'll find the link. And it is antiresolutionchallenge.com, all one word. Okay, one more thing that I want to say. If you're joining me on Instagram or you're joining me on YouTube or one of the Facebook channels, and you've asked a question and I'm not answering, or you've said hi, sometimes they don't show up. So I just want you to know that I've had people get really upset with me because they're like, why are you ignoring me? And sometimes the chat doesn't show up properly. Okay, BB has some questions. I'm going to do my best to answer in a brief way. And there was also another question. I had my father drop from hospice who's bedbound and I'm stuck, scared of the unknown. Sending you a big hug. It's always so scary when we are walking somebody towards their death and we don't feel supported. Even if you feel well supported, it's still scary. So just sending you love. And one of the things that's really helpful when you're facing a scary situation that feels really unknown is to not allow yourself to go into worst case scenario, to come back to this moment. What can you do? Breathe, show up, listen. Be with your Father. Sometimes we go into anxiety, and so we don't show up for ourselves or for the person that's dying, because we just go into overwhelm. So I just want to invite you that come back into this moment. One of the most helpful things that I found over and over again is to look at, where am I abandoning myself? Where am I making up stories and going into the future or going into the past? And can you come and be right here? Right here. Soften. Soften your body, soften your heart. Be with your grief. And that will allow you to reconnect with your intuition, to listen to what's the next step. Okay, good. So there's another question around a fear of a relationship and an ex and all the dynamics that have been happening in that. Okay. So what I would say, BB, okay. What I would say, BB, is you're at a place where you have a choice. And the choice point is there, and there's no right choice. I'm not going to tell you what choice to make. And I think if anybody tells you what choice you should be making, come back to, you're living the life. You have to make the choice. You need to take responsibility for your choice and also understand every choice has consequences, which isn't bad. It's just the truth. There's consequences for every choice that we make, and we get to be responsible for the choices that we're making and learn from them. So when you're faced with a really difficult situation and a really difficult choice, and there's that sense of terror, like I can't win either way, one of the best things to do is let go of the past, let go of what's happened. And I know that sounds impossible because you've got your whole story and you're sharing the story, right? This is my story. But can you let go of the story? Can you let go of everything that's happened in the past? Can you let go of defending yourself, of making them wrong, of making yourself wrong, and take the story and just say, hi, story, this is my experience. And it's also my story and my perception of the experience. And let me just take this with love and put it down. And just let it rest for a minute. Put it down. And then come back to, separate from your story and separate from a story around the length of your marriage, what's happened in the past, what you think you're supposed to be doing for the future, what you think anybody else is supposed to be doing. Let go of the story and come back to what is true for me now, separate from the story. This isn't easy to do. It's a practice, but it's part of when we do the untangling of the strategies, which I'm going to talk about each of the strategies in a moment. The strategies are control, controller, pleaser, isolator, and distractor. When we start to untangle those, that allows us to put our stories down and get into relationship with the truth of this moment, what's true for us, not what we think should be true, not what we think other people should be doing, but what's true for us now so that we can make our choice from this moment. Again, this is not easy. I'm not saying this is, and it's a practice. And this is why we need tools. This is why we need guidance to help us to release. So, one of the tools that I found to be incredibly helpful are understanding what our strategies are so that we can start to step out of the habitual patterns and the stories that we create from those strategies and open into listening to our intuition, our creativity, our hearts in this moment. Okay, so I'm going to run you through the strategies. And first, Shirley Ann, I think I'm stuck between flee and fawn. I'm not sure either of those are conscious choices. It feels very tangled. Yeah, exactly. Good. Pamela just writes, I'm getting better at my people-pleasing strategy, finally in my 50s. Hey, it's never too late for sure. Yes. Yeah. I love that. Anika, listening is a powerful spiritual practice. And the books that I'm referencing as I'm talking today, Warrior Goddess Training talks about each of the 4 strategies. So that is the book that I'm most well known for. So Warrior Goddess Training. So you can go check that book out. And I will be referencing the strategies that are in that book in the Anti-Resolution Challenge. I also have 8 other books you can check out. Okay, someone on Instagram, how do you stop defending when that has become a survival skill? How do you get comfortable with being vulnerable and not defensive when you feel attacked? Whew. Practice. And yes, it is, maybe it is on Audible. Everything's on Audible as well. Yeah. And you can also go to the website warriorgoddess.com, and we have a list of all the books and where to get them. All right. So you can't just decide, just like you can't just make a resolution and then follow through on the resolution. Like a lot of times we don't have enough energy available to just decide, I'm going to stop being defensive. That takes a tremendous amount of energy, because if you think about how long you've been defensive, or how long you've been a pleaser, or how long you've been isolating, for example, if you look at the strategies, that there's energy put into that strategy or that way of being. There's energy and a reason that you've defended yourself, because that's what you learned how to do. That's what you know. And so it takes equal or more energy to stop the pattern. And it also takes time. So if you've been defending yourself because you didn't know how else to do it, and defending yourself by fighting, or defending yourself by pleasing, or defending yourself by isolating, there may be years of practice that's gone into that. And so why would we expect that we could just change it like that? It's probably going to take years to unwind it, which is okay. You just need tools and understanding and awareness and compassion with yourself around the process. Okay. So if you can have compassion for yourself, that when you find yourself defending yourself for something, instead of beating yourself up or saying, oh my God, I'm doing it again, what's wrong with me? To be like, hi, I'm defending myself. Let me take a breath and just notice, what does this feel like in my body? What am I actually defending? Can I listen rather than defend? And that, as Anika, it's like, that is one of the most powerful spiritual practices, is learning, instead of defending, to listen to what somebody is actually trying to say, to listen to ourselves as well. You know, I had an experience last year where a friend of mine got really upset with me and really attacked in a big way. It was the finger shaking, yelling at me sort of attack. And I remember being like, wow, they're really angry. And I had some like reaction. And in the past, I would have defended. I would have been like, you know, equal and opposite energy to respond. what I found is because of the practice that I've done over the years of not abandoning myself, of learning to hold my truth, of speaking with using my voice to speak what I see, of being vulnerable and staying with myself, that I was able to stay fairly open-hearted and say that was not my intent. That was not my intent, to not defend, but to hold with love. And they de-escalated and we were able to work it out. And later they apologized. And I was able to also apologize for my part. That took practice to get to that place. So it's possible. But first, notice where you're defending, get curious about why, and then look at what's your strategy. So let's run through the strategies. And again, tomorrow, starting with the anti-resolution challenge, if this resonates with you, or if you're feeling like, yes, I need more tools, more support, I want to know more about what my strategy is or what my beloved strategy is so that I can start to untangle it, please join me in the anti-resolution challenge. It's a free 7-day container where a group of us will be coming together every day to either on your own or in a community like this on social media to explore the strategies and the ways that we go into habitual patterns and how to untangle them. That's kind of the easiest way to describe it. It is very gentle and also very deep. It's one of those things that we did it systematically in a gentle way, and it's real powerful work. Okay, so if you haven't joined already, antiresolutionchallenge.com. So excited to be doing this challenge. And as I shared at the beginning, I've been really pulled back from social media because I was navigating long COVID and a wildfire. 22 is quite a year. Hi, you never have to apologize, Doe, for being tardy. You know that. I'm glad you're here, sweetheart. Good to see you. So, and one of the pieces that's woven through everything that I do is how to be unconditional with ourselves and with others. And being unconditional does not mean that you don't make boundaries, that you don't use your voice. It means that you learn how to ally with yourself, how to take action from love rather than fear, and how to untangle the old patterns and habits thoroughly and from a place of curiosity, from a place of deep self-respect and patience over time. Okay, so antiresolutionchallenge.com if you haven't joined us. All right, let's go through those 4 strategies. And then again, if you have any other questions, we'll close out in about 15 minutes. So happy to be live with all of you. This feels so good. And I am currently in Woodstock, New York on a writing retreat. So the book is happening. I'm working on a new book right now. It's so exciting. And also doing this anti-resolution challenge. We're opening up our Warrior Goddess training circle that we do twice a year, and lots of specials that will be happening. This is the other thing, is that there's a big giveaway that we are doing. So if you join the anti-resolution challenge, you will be in that giveaway. I'll tell you what it is when you join the challenge, but it's really good this year. Yeah, me too. All right, so let's do a quick review of the 4 strategies, and then through the anti-resolution challenge, we'll be systematically looking how to free ourselves from them so that we're using the best qualities of each of these ways of being rather than being burdened by the strategy of them. Okay, so the strategies are, we use them to keep ourselves safe, or to give us, even better way to say it, to give us an illusion of safety. To give us the illusion of safety. Okay, they don't necessarily make us safe. But we feel like we're taking an action that is creating more safety, even if it's not. Sometimes it's actually creating more harm. A lot of times, actually. We develop these strategies early, often in childhood. And we often have one main strategy, okay? And when you understand what your main strategy is, and we each have some of all of these strategies, when you understand what one of your main strategies is, it gives you a big boost in understanding yourself and taking new action to let go of what's not serving you. And when you also understand the strategies, it can also help you in all your relationships, because you can see, oh, my partner's scared, which is why they're trying to control things. Okay? Instead of fighting against them, or my best friend is scared, which is why they're distracting right now, or they feel unsafe, then it allows us to have deeper conversations with ourselves and with others, and to look for the roots of things rather than trying to just navigate the weeds. Okay. And that's what I think this is why resolutions suck for me. Resolutions suck because all they're doing often is clipping the tops of the weeds off and not touching the roots. In the anti-resolution challenge, we're going to be moving into the roots of the patterns, stories, habits, old emotions. And those strategies can give us a big place to hold what we're doing and how it's not serving us. Okay, so pleasers, controllers, distractors, and isolators. So those are the four main strategies. Again, most of us have one that is the most familiar, and we each have all of them. Okay, you'll recognize them. And we're also in a very distractor society right now. If you think about how fast things move, how fast social media moves. So we're definitely very distractible, all of us. Okay. There's a difference between that and using distraction as a strategy. So let's just start there. Distractors as a strategy. When distractors feel unsafe, they change the topic. They play video games. They make jokes. So they're constantly, if there's something that feels unsafe or unknown, they will boop, boop, boop. Okay. Distractors often start a lot of things and don't finish them because they get distracted. Okay, so the hurt of a distractor is that they often don't know themselves very well because they're constantly bouncing from thing to thing. They don't finish things. And they often feel unfulfilled because of that. The gifts, all of the strategies also have gifts. So when the strategy is untangled as a safety mechanism, and when we actually claim what the support is of that way of being. So for example, distractors are often incredibly creative. They think in really different ways. And so when that energy of creativity is harnessed, it's so yummy. Okay. Isolators, when they feel stressed in any way, remove themselves from situations. And they remove themselves from situations by isolating, either by physically removing themselves by situations, or by emotional or energetically removing them. So you can have an isolator in a room with you, but they are gone. Okay. So as a strategy, why it is hurtful is often isolators are really yearning to be seen, to have deep conversations, and they feel disconnected. They can feel disconnected. The beauty of isolators, often isolators actually do need a lot of time alone, but when that isolation is from choice, when it's about cocooning self rather than running away, rather than fleeing, and you'll notice each of the strategies is also connected to freeze, fight, fawn, flee. Okay, isolator is about fleeing. That once it's healed, isolators often have a very beautiful connection to spirit and a deep understanding of self. And so when they harness that power, they're able to then create deep connections with others. okay, and not just flee. Controllers, when they feel unsafe, try to control their environment. They manipulate, they fix, they put themselves into everybody else's business often, or they try to control their own inner emotions and or to make things the way they should be. So controllers are often like, there's a right way to be. If you just did the right thing, or if you just did the right action, it would all be okay. So there's often a lot of blame for controllers. They blame others, and they often are very judgmental towards themselves. Okay, underneath the strategy for controllers is often an amazing capacity to see the big picture of things and for leadership. So a lot of leaders are actually controllers that hopefully have healed their control issues, but not always. Okay, but when you clean it up, controllers have a capacity again to see big picture and be able to move energy, resources, people in a good, loving, healing way. And then our last strategy is pleasers. And pleasers, when they feel unsafe, go towards, how do I make sure everybody else is okay? How do I help others feel comfortable? And they often abandon themselves in favor of supporting, fixing, helping others. Okay, connected to fawning. Okay, so pleasers often feel incredibly resentful because what happens with the pleaser is like, well, I took care of you and I did everything for you. Why aren't you taking care of me? There's an exchange. Like, if I somehow make you happy, then you are going to make me happy. But it's not overt. It's very subterfuge. And so often pleasers have a lot of resentment and they feel drained because they're always trying to fix and please and help others. Underneath the strategy, pleasers love being in service. It's what feeds and nourishes them. So a healed aspect of that, of pleaser, when you get beneath the strategy, is a great joy of being in service. Mm-hmm. And you can see how helpful this can be if you know what your main strategy is, so you can catch yourself and then come back to choice. Because what happens with the strategies is you just go into automatic pilot. You don't even realize you're doing it. Okay, a great example, I had a friend who was a controller, and one day she realized that every time she walked into a room, if she wasn't comfortable temperature-wise, she would change the temperature, even in other people's homes, wherever she was. She was like, oh, the temperature isn't right. And that's a little example, but she was like, I'm doing this completely unconsciously because I think the temperature, but I'm not asking anybody else. And that's what can happen, is you don't even realize you're doing it and you're having huge impact on other people and yourself. So, all right, Pamela, do you have a strategy to remind pleasers to check in with myself before feeling into what others around me want? Yeah, so I'm doing the pleaser strategy, and we'll talk about this through the anti-resolution challenge of antidotes for each of the strategies. Okay, so I really encourage you to join the anti-resolution challenge, because we'll go through, here's a way to undo that strategy. And a lot of it's becoming aware of when you're doing the strategy and why, and doing something different. But you have to practice it in a lot of different ways. It's not gonna, the hope is, and this is the whole thing about resolutions, why resolution sucks. If I just do this one thing, then everything will be better. But the truth is, we've been doing these strategies for so long, and sometimes been like getting big support to do the strategies. Like, being a pleaser is very beneficial from a societal point of view. A lot of people will want you to stay a pleaser. They don't want you to change. Okay. Same with a lot other strategies have other benefits. So we have to be willing to look at what the benefits are, to name the benefits, and also be willing to let go of the benefits, because we see how much it makes us suffer and that it takes time. So join the anti-resolution challenge. We'll talk a lot more about each of the strategies, and we'll give you really bite-sized ways to start to dismantle, dissolve, untangle. Blessings, Valerie. Yeah, exactly, Joe. I really like the concept of the anti-resolution. Instead of setting with a resolution, I like to rather set an intention. Yeah. And that's one of the things that we talk about throughout the anti-resolution challenge is what is intent? What's the difference between having an intent and creating a resolution that's from the head versus really dropping into our body and saying, I'm willing to stay with myself through this process and to be with the untangling, to navigate the challenges, to learn how not to abandon myself, how to ally with myself fully. Yes. So, yeah, HeatherAsh, one of the many lessons I have learned so much from you, one thing that comes to mind is when it gets really uncomfortable and you don't want to show up. When it's the most resistant is to show up. Yeah, exactly. Show up even when you don't want to, when you feel the most resistance. That's something we talk about in the Warrior Goddess Training Circle, is the importance of having community and having a safe place where even when you're feeling resistant, when you're scared, when you're feeling incredibly vulnerable, you can show up and be held in love. You can show up and know that you're going to be received and supported. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I hope to see you on the Anti-Resolution Challenge. It starts tomorrow. You can join us, antiresolutionchallenge.com. Super easy to join, all free. There'll be a really beautiful giveaway that's part of the challenge that we'll also be looking with love at our strategies and the ways that we have responded to trauma in our life and learn ways to untangle it. Beth, I love it. I'm a controller with pleaser rising. Yes. It starts tomorrow. The emails will be coming out at sometime in the morning. So the Anti-Resolution Challenge, you'll get a little email tomorrow morning. And if at any time you've signed up for the challenge and you don't get the email, just email us at hello@Warrior Goddess. Sometimes it gets stuck in spam. And I will be doing the live tomorrow. Let me see. I'm going to be changing the time for them. Tomorrow, I'll be doing the live probably at 2:30 Eastern. That's my guess. 2:30 Eastern. I'll go do it right after we leave here. I'll figure my schedule out and I will post. So it'll show up on social media when that live is going to be tomorrow. And I'll let Instagram people know as well. So keep an eye on social media and Facebook, YouTube. You'll get a notification of when I'm going live tomorrow. Yeah. Vea or V, I love your name. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Vea, Rose. Often what I say, if you feel like you're like a full mixture of all of us have parts for sure. Sometimes when you're like, I'm everything, you may be a distractor. But again, we all have use each of these different strategies, but we often have one that is our main go-to. I grew up and was really a pleaser. As I got older, I became a controller. But if I get really scared, I go back to pleasing. Yeah, it's really helpful to have the awareness so you can then gently, lovingly course correct yourself of like, oh, sweetie, you're controlling. And it's such a beautiful, also, this is the last thing that I'll share before we close, is that really understanding the strategies and getting in your body, and we'll be working with this through the Anti-Resolution Challenge, of what it feels like when you're in that strategy. What happens is that when you notice yourself pleasing, you can stop instead of then punishing yourself or thinking you're doing something wrong. You can just be like, oh, what's happening, sweetheart? Are you scared? Because again, the strategies are a way to keep that you're keeping yourself safe. So when you understand when you're in the strategy, you're probably feeling unsafe in some way or vulnerable, then you can come back to yourself and start to undo it. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, and it's so true, Beatrice. They come out, depends on the event of what's happening. Very, very true. All right, loves. Thank you so much for joining me today. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow for our live. If you want to join the live for the Anti-Resolution Challenge, I will be posting when the live is going to happen. Again, when you join the Anti-Resolution Challenge, you'll get an email in the morning with a little video. And then what we'll be doing on the lives is discussing the theme for the day and going deeper with it. All my love, take good care of yourselves. Blessed, blessed day to you. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. And broadcast. And